Hello and happy Tuesday, which is of course my book reviews day. And today I'd like to talk to you about The Five by Robert McCammon. This was a novel that he published back in 2011, and it was actually the first novel he published post coming back out of retirement that didn't follow the adventures of Matthew Corbett. No, this novel instead follows the adventures of The Five, a rock band out in Texas who are figuratively trying to survive the tour and are very soon trying to literally survive their tour after a veteran witnesses their latest music video, which is a protest song. And through a little bit of PTSD and a little bit of delusion, the veteran decides that he is going to go on his own mission, and that it is a duty to take out the five in honor of those who have served and those who have sacrificed so much for the country. And man, I don't know why it took this long to read The Five. I've had this book for years, but it's just been one of those things where I'm like, well, I've loved everything else I've read of McCammon, but this is going to just sit in the TBR pile. And I loved it. I am just like every other McCammon novel I've read. I enjoyed the hell out of this. He has an exceptional gift for characterization. So even though we primarily follow two members of the five, Nomad and Ariel, the two guitarists and singers. You do get some very, very good characterization for all five of them, including the sixth member of the five, who is their manager, George. You learn to love every single one of these characters. Even Jeremy Pett, who is the antagonist, the veteran who's trying to kill the band, is a very sympathetic character. He's obviously been driven wrong from his delusions that he's encountering, but you feel for him. And man, it makes it a tough novel to read, because you don't want anything bad to happen to these characters. You don't want anything bad to happen to the antagonist either. You want them all to live their best lives. So one thing I will say is that the novel is a little bit longer, so if you are going in expecting, to hit the ground running, it does take a little while to get going. It's almost 70 pages before you are introduced, 71 pages here, before you're even introduced to the antagonist, Jeremy Pett, and it's another 60 pages beyond that before you have the inciting incident that starts off the main heart of the story. That's not to say that nothing happens in those first 120 pages. It's mostly characterization, as well as some strange encounters that the band has on the road, such as a very strange promoter and a strange, mysterious girl who borders on the realm of mysticism within those first early chapters. It's handled very well, but overall, the whole novel in its 500 pages probably could be cut a little bit here and there to be a little more concise. But if you stick with it, I think you will not be disappointed. It is one hell of a read. And if you are going in expecting a horror novel, you are going to be a little disappointed. There are some horrific things that happen in this novel, but more than anything, I would say that it is a thriller. Following this band. When I say, they're being hunted down, don't expect, like a balls to the walls, like Us Versus Them Deliverance style novel. It's not like that at all. But it is very much primarily about them, trying to get to the bottom and trying to survive. Oop, did not want to show you that art piece. Don't pause the video there. In addition to the length being kind of one of the weaker points of the novel, one thing that I unfortunately have to say is a weak point of the novel is actually the lyrics of the band. They're just kind of cheesy. Thankfully, there's not an absolute ton of them. It's only when the band is performing. But it's one thing to read a novel about the Beatles and another thing to listen to the Beatles. If you just, were reading a novel and you saw Beatles lyrics listed out without knowing in your head what the song sounded like, you might think, I showed you it again. Don't look at that. You might think this is weird or this doesn't quite flow. You don't really get the song in your head. And that's kind of what I got with the lyrics in the novel here. They just felt a little too cheesy for me, especially the song that is a reoccurring theme throughout the novel, It's early on. It's revealed that this is likely going to be, this is before you even bring Jeremy Pett into the picture. This is likely going to be the band's last tour. Some of the members are going to go their own route after this tour has concluded. So the band decides to do the Kumbaya song. They're going to write kind of one big hurrah, where they want everybody to contribute to the song, even though Nomad and Ariel, the primary songwriters, and occasionally Terry, who kind of writes his own stuff. He's a keyboard player. So they decided to do the Kumbaya song, and that is a central theme throughout the novel, them trying to add to this song. Unfortunately, I felt the song was, oh, there it is again. I gotta stop flipping through the book. The song's a little too cheesy, in my opinion, when you actually get to the full song in the final act. I mean, I like the intent behind it. I like the message behind it, even if the words themselves didn't quite resonate with me. If you boil down to it, The Five is a novel of good versus evil. It doesn't really have, it's not really a supernatural novel. There are some supernatural elements in it. Like I said, there's some little magical realism, a little bit of mysticism with, like I said, the good versus evil there. Such as, here's an image from one of the nightmares that Ariel has. I mean, you know, seeing this image, you might be like, oh, this is supernatural horror. It's not really supernatural horror. It's just, you know, fleeting moments, fleeting images, fleeting scenes where you get the pure horror. Apart from that, you have a thriller of a band both figuratively and literally trying to survive. But McCammon has a way with words, and I think, you know, even with the 500 pages, even though it feels like it might be a longer novel because of it, even though it might drag sometimes, I think the message comes through strong in the end, and it's a stellar read. You know, if you are like me and you are patiently or impatiently waiting for Leviathan to get published, which I heard that the trade edition for Leviathan might be coming out in December. Fingers crossed that becomes a reality. Then this might be a great novel to help hold you over if you didn't want to go out and read some of his other works. This edition right here is the signed and numbered edition from Subterranean Press with its leather style binding. It has the limitation page of 274 numbered copies, 26 lettered copies. This one's a little bit harder to find, but there's great news. Oh, it does have a slipcase, by the way. Here's the slipcase. But the trade edition of the novel, both the trade hardcover and the trade paperback, are both very easy to find, which is kind of surprising. I don't know how many trade editions Subterranean Press published, which have a nice little cloth binding here. But it's very easy to find copies, especially ones that have been signed by Robert McCammon. The man signs like a plethora of novels out there, so it's very easy to find a signed copy. Shouldn't cost you a pretty penny. There was a trade edition, which I believe was done by Tor. A couple of years later, the paperback edition, I think that's still available to find as well. But like I said, worst comes to worst, you can very easily find the trade hardcover for pretty cheap. I will say the trade edition does not have the interior images. So, you know, I showed you all three of them. I meant to show you two of them and accidentally showed you the other one several times. And doesn't have the illustrated end papers by Vincent Chong. But that's totally fine. You're here for the novel itself. If you want to see the images, check out my video. Fun thing about Vincent Chong's artwork is that I've had this also on my shelf for many years. This is Beware the Dark magazine, which was one of 3 magazines that SST Publications printed back in the day. And I never knew that this image was from the 5. I always loved this image. It really captures you. But yeah, it's, you know, unrelated to the book review. There's a nice little whole, look at all these fun images by Vincent Chong here in Beware the Dark. So you can check that out too if you want. One day I will read all the stories in Beware the Dark, and maybe I'll do a magazine review for a magazine that is out of print and hasn't been published in a decade. Who knows? We'll see. So anyways, Robert McCammon has an incredible way with words, an incredible way with characters, and even though the 5 might be a slog at times with its longer page count, and, you know, having a lot of sparsity between the action scenes, it's still a hell of a read that can keep you entertained. Also, fun little story here. Well, it's not like a story per se, but The man clearly loves his music. And with his dedication in the back, he just lists band after band that he falls in love with, which has just quite an eclectic taste, including probably the craziest lineup to ever be in one single line, featuring Industrial Filter, America, the Beastie Boys, the Police, and the Flaming Lips. Can you imagine if there was a lineup like that in a concert? What would the fan base look like? It'd be wild. What a crazy lineup. If you do want to hear a Robert McCammon song, there's actually 2 Robert McCammon songs that you can check out on YouTube. One called Darkest Night, which is performed by Dorian Lives, which is actually a tie-in to the 5. He had written lyrics as if it was one of the 5 songs, and Dorian Lives put music to it. The lyrics are still very cheesy. But it's still entertaining. I'll put a link in the description below for that. Or, if you want to see something even more entertaining, Robert McCammon himself actually performs a rap song called My Creations, which is still on YouTube. I love that video. It is a career retrospective in rap form. And McCammon himself is the rapper. I kid you not, it is as amazing as it sounds. Link in the description below to that as well. But seriously, though, check out the 5 of Robert McCammon. It doesn't have to be the Subterranean Press edition. You should be able to find trade editions pretty easily out there. But be sure to check out his Matthew Corbett series, which is coming to its conclusion later this year with Leviathan, which should be getting published first and foremost from Lividian Publications. If you want to check out more book reviews, I post at least one a week on Tuesdays, and I have plenty of unboxing videos in between here or there to keep you entertained, so please consider subscribing to the channel. Anyways, thank you very much for watching. Check out Robert McCammon, and we'll see you around next time.